Hello and welcome everyone. Today we're going to dive into an interesting and addictive game I started playing the last few months, Slay the Spire. Just a quick overview, Slay the Spire is a roguelike deck building game that has you choose your path to play through different encounters. There are monster battles, more complex battles that involve a mini-boss known as an elite, unknown encounters that can work in your favor or do just quite the opposite. You can come across merchants where you can purchase cards, relics, and potions to improve your chances of surviving. Rest sites where the standard choices are healing or card upgrading, treasure chests to obtain a relic, and lastly, once you reach the top of the spire, face the boss of the act. In this video, I'll be showing the top 5 cards to look for when building your defensive deck for the Ironclad, one of 4 classes to choose from in the game. We will not be including colorless cards as our top 5. We are strictly looking at the Ironclad's exclusive cards. Now I just want to make sure we are all on the same page. When building a defensive deck, the goal of this build is to have cards that efficiently generate the most defense. So not necessarily always obtaining cards that generate block. You still want to create a balance of being able to have some offensive, energy inducing, and draw cards. At number 5, Barricade. Block is not removed at the start of your turn. This is a rare card and usually obtained after defeating a boss or found at the merchant in later acts. And for that reason, it is probably best to obtain when you have energy-inducing relics and cards, so that your turn is not wasted on just playing Barricade. Also, upgrading the card reduces its energy cost to 2, which is helpful. Barricade is best used as early as possible in a battle to benefit from the turns where you draw block gaining cards and the enemies do not intend on attacking. Usually those defensive cards become useless during those turns, but with Barricade it allows you to carry any block gained this turn to the next. This is especially useful against elite and boss battles where they intend to do heavy damage and sometimes one turn is not enough to fully or mostly block that attack. Barricade works well with the Entrench card, double your block. Both these cards played can have your block total reach really high levels. Another card that is also fitting with Barricade is Body Slam, deal damage equal to block. This can allow you to use your block offensively and is effective when the block reaches high levels as it's being carried over from previous turns. Moving on to number 4, True Grit. Gain 7 block and exhaust a random card. And when upgraded, which I find the use of this card rises, is that you can pick any card in your hand to exhaust. Also, the block gained by this card rises to 9. To explain quickly, exhaust means to remove a card from play until the next battle. When you have the choice of exhausting a card, this means you can choose even status and curse cards that negatively impact you during battle. An example status card is Wound, which takes up a spot in your hand and cannot be played. It also takes away from drawing a card that can aid in the battle. Shame would be an example of a curse card that not only takes up a space and can't be played, it adds a debuff to your character at the end of your turn. This is where the importance of True Grit comes into play, because on top of adding block, it also can remove a card that you don't want in your hand. True Grit works well with cards that trigger positive effects when cards are exhausted, such as Feel No Pain, Sentinel, and Dark Embrace. For relics, Sharon's Ashes, and Dead Branch. I also think if you are going for a defensive deck to add this card with the Power Through card. Power Through has very high value of block, and True Grit will at least help with eliminating the wound cards you pick up from using Power Through. I will say that I don't recommend the need of adding this card to your deck if you do end up getting the relic called Medical Kit. With having that relic, status cards can now be exhausted without using energy, making True Grit's main purpose utterly useless, except with curse cards which are less likely to be added to your deck. Number 3 on this list is Armaments. Grants 5 block and upgrades a card of your choice, and when Armaments is in its upgraded form, your entire hand is upgraded. Plain and simple, having upgraded cards are better than non-upgraded cards. Although I do notice that as you get further into the run, most of the cards in your deck have already been upgraded because you have visited many campfires and encountered card upgrading events. So I feel as this card is great to have in the beginning of your run, but might not become so useful later on. To only gain 5 block in both its forms is really low block value. It is equivalent to a non-upgraded defend card. This card really does not have any Ironclad exclusive cards that it should not be paired with, nor does it have any cards it really works well with. With relics, Runic Pyramid is a great pair with this card, since Runic Pyramid no longer forces you to discard your hand at the end of the turn. Since 10 cards is the most that can be held, Armaments will allow you to upgrade as many as 9 cards while having the Runic Pyramid. Just shy of the top spot at number 2 is Shrug It Off. Grants 8 block, 11 when upgraded, and you also draw a card. Only costing 1 energy for the highest value of block you can get from a 1 energy non-ethereal card. This card is also very common and can be found as a reward after combats. My recommendation is to invest in at least 3 copies of this card for a defensive deck. Any card that you pick over this one should be a card that helps with a combo. Other than that, this card should almost always be chosen. No cards that pair well or poorly with this card. Its simplicity and common rarity makes it my second pick for top 5 defensive cards to look for. And finally, the top card to have when building a defensive deck for the Ironclad is Flame Barrier. Gain 12 block and whenever attacked during this turn, deal 4 damage. When upgraded, block becomes 16 and 6 damage dealt back. Both these positive effects at a great value of just 2 energy. This card allows you to have some balance of being able to block and attack during the same turn. Works even better when creatures have multiple attacks as they receive damage back for each hit. Once again, no cards pair really well or poorly with this card, but it would be a good idea to try to pair this with energy inducing cards and relics. Play this card twice or with other defensive cards for ultimate safety against high damaging attacks. This is why I feel having multiples of this card would be best for near end game, because by then your energy level during combat hopefully exceeds the 3 default. And this concludes our list for the top 5 defensive cards to look for when creating the best defensive deck for the Ironclad. The top 2 cards were a tough decision as I find they both provided the greatest value for their energy consumed. But the positive effect of dealing damage on top of defending just made Flame Barrier have slightly more edge. And also, if you notice, both of these cards do not rely on having or not having a certain card to play with them to be more effective. This to me just helps your odds as they can be chosen no matter the build of deck you decide to go. Once again, I would like to repeat that I'm not in any way implying that these are the only cards to look for when building a defensive deck. There has to be some balance. And yes, you'll be mostly gaining block, but we do have to defeat the enemy with attack at some point. Something else to keep in mind when playing Slay the Spire is that the Ironclad class has 75 cards to pick from, so the odds you will have the chance to obtain all these cards in a run, which only has so many encounters, will be slim. Please let me know your thoughts on this top 5 I have chosen for the Ironclad's defensive deck. Would you have swapped some card rankings, or have some different cards in mind, or was I completely out to lunch on this list? Let me know what you think in the comments. And also, if you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. I'm hoping to make a video on the Ironclad's offensive decks such as the High Strength, Perfected Strike, and one of my favorites, the Clash. If you did not enjoy this video, please let me know in the comments what I could have done better, and what would interest you to see more of. Thank you everyone, and take care.